Too much emphasis on technology can be harmful to basic education in our schools.
Training in technology is essential to education in our schools.
The American Religious Town Hall meeting is now in session.
Welcome, friends, to the American Religious Town Hall meeting, where the discussion of religious, political, and social issues is meant to promote the cause of religious freedom and to help us better understand each other. And now, here's your host and moderator, Pastor Jerry Lutz.
Thank you very much, Mark, and welcome to another edition of the American Religious Town Hall meeting. As you heard from the opening statements, this should be a very interesting, if not controversial, discussion today. We're glad that you've tuned in. But before we get started, let's have our panelists introduce themselves. I'll begin with the person to my right. Welcome, Bishop.
Thank you. I'm Bishop Michael Olson, and I'm the Bishop of the Roman Catholic Diocese of Fort Worth.
Hi, I'm Carl Trovall. I'm Dean of the College of Liberal Arts at Concordia University in Austin, Texas, a university affiliated with the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod.
I'm Tom Plumbley. I'm a minister in the Christian Church Disciples of Christ, and I serve as senior minister of First Christian Church in downtown Fort Worth, Texas.
Hello, I'm Mel Robeck. I'm professor of church history and ecumenics at Fuller Theological Seminary in Pasadena, California, and an ordained minister with the Assemblies of God.
And I'm Bishop Othel Hawthorne Lakey. I'm a bishop in the Christian Methodist Episcopal Church. I am retired, and I live in Beaufort, Georgia.
Hello, my name is Allan Lane. I'm pastor of Fort Graham Baptist Church in the lovely Lake Whitney area of Central Texas.
Well, thank you very much, gentlemen, for being here today. Looking forward to this discussion about technology and education. According to the Annie E. Casey Foundation, 67% of fourth graders in U.S. schools are not reading at grade level, and only 32% of eighth graders and 38% of 12th graders are at or above grade level. Compared to other countries, we fail in math and science. In an assessment by the Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development, of 30 countries surveyed, the U.S. ranked 25th in math performance and 21st in science. Despite decades of effort and billions of dollars, test scores have remained stagnant since the 1970s. National Public Radio reported that nearly one of every 4 high school graduates cannot pass the entrance exam for the U.S. military. That U.S. schools are in crisis is a sober reality no one denies. Many educators, governmental agencies, and business leaders believe that one answer to our educational crisis is more information technology. Consequently, many school systems are inundated with laptops, chronos, iPads, whiteboards, etc., designed to improve educational performance. Despite such efforts, however, many studies indicate that technology is not the cure-all many believe it to be. Charles Kenny, who wrote The False Promises of Classroom Technology in November the 11th of 2013, for example, reported that wiring up the schools and giving kids computers has been widely disappointing. Teachers have experienced elementary students with computers bypassing the basics in reading, math, and social skills. So for today's discussion here on the American Religious Town Hall, we want to focus on the impact of technology on education. Specifically, we want to ask the panelists to delve into these 3 basic questions. First, is it possible that the widespread belief that the answer to our educational crisis is the increase in information technology blinds us to more fundamental and chronic problems that plague our educational systems? Second question, even if technology proves to be the panacea to our educational woes, many think it might be, would the widespread inequality in the availability of that technology exacerbate rather than solve those woes? And then finally, when all has been said and done, is it still not true that the effective education of children boils down to competent teachers, well compensated and respected, who love and care for those under their charge? That is the subject we're going to be dealing with today. We're going to go back to those who opened our program with their provocative statements, and we begin with Bishop Olson.
Thank you. I think technology, first of all, is a means to an end, and it's a necessary instrument for access that which students and everybody needs some access to for participation in society. I think, though, with it has come some shifts as far as emphasis and focus and needs, especially in the area of social needs and socialization, because there's something very isolating about the use of technology and the reliance of it when it becomes the predominant, if not exclusive, means of communicating with other people. We lose some aspect of their personality, and it takes on sort of the phenomena of a projection of the self, before a screen or before a simple use of a phone. Now, I think that has to be taken into account of. The second thing also I would say is that because it's a means to an end, I'm not so sure everybody's in our schools have had equal access to this and also equal training to this in the same way in the past where many in our schools didn't have access to the best textbooks. And I think the same problem remains. That's a human problem and not just simply a problem concerned with technology.
All right, thank you very much. And Dr. Trovall, your setting is education on the higher level, and you made an opening statement as well. Could you please elucidate that?
Sure. Technology is not really an option. It's already there. It's really a matter, I think, of how exactly we're going to use it. There's an old saying that I've heard a number of times that power corrupts and PowerPoint corrupts absolutely.
PowerPoint.
PowerPoint, yes,
Yes.
PowerPoint.
Yeah, that's what you said.
Yeah. I love the line because I think that technology is something that always offers something that makes us smarter, faster, better, more efficient. And that's part of the nature of technology, is always to promise that. But I don't think it always delivers unless the person who's managing the technology has the ability to discern the best way to use it. Which means that we need teachers who are educated in how best to utilize technology in the classroom. I love that last line. I mean, we need competent teachers, well compensated, respected, who love and care for those under their charge. I couldn't agree more. I think we also need teachers who are trained wisely in pedagogical activities where students actually learn. There's a philosopher of technology, Albert Borgman, at the University of Montana, and I love this guy. And he asked this question: what sorts of burdens should we not want to get rid of? And he says that that's a really critical question in technology. What exactly in the classroom is the burden that we don't want to get rid of? And I think the problem with using technology is that we're getting rid of certain burdens that really need to be there, namely sometimes the intimate connections you make face-to-face with students in the classroom, the touch that occurs when you're teaching. There are any number of things that are important.
All right, thank you. Next to you is another educator. And so, Dr. Robeck, welcome back today. And your perspective on this, in and out of the classroom.
In and out of the classroom. Well, I don't think we could be coming to the people today except that we have technology working for us. So I think that technology certainly has its place. What I worry about is the overuse of technology and the misuse of technology, and the expectation that all of our students will be using technology exactly the way we want them to use it, which is often not the case. I don't think I face that too much in my classes, but I can tell you that there are classes in which I know that I have 3 or 4 people that are hooked up with Facebook or Google or something else. In fact, I know that because I can make a statement and 2 minutes later, somebody will raise their hands. Well, I just Googled that, and you're wrong because, and I have to say, well, the quality of stuff that's out there on Google isn't always exactly right, Maybe I am wrong, but maybe I'm not. I think in our rush to be relevant and try to be up to date and everything, sometimes we overstep too far. And my fear is I watch children, and I have 8 grandchildren that I'm watching fairly closely. They're already, tech savvy in ways that I could never be, and I see that as a positive. At the same time, it has been changing the way they think and the way they act and the way they write and what they read and whether they can do math and could they do it if the electricity suddenly disappeared? Could they do that? Could they even write a letter? I'm not sure. LA Unified has gone to the place where they give iPads to something over 3 million kids right now. Over 80,000 of them this year had to be returned because they were not working, functioning. When they tried to give the state exams, they said they all had to be done on iPads this year. For things that normally took an hour, it took as many as 4 hours because they couldn't get the points across to get it done. So I have real mixed feelings about it. The flip side of it is that technology does open up new audiences that could never be reached by coming to a place like the seminary where I teach. But I'm not teaching online courses for people all over the globe. I am teaching for people that sit in front of me. And I have certain concerns about how to prepare pastors, for instance. How do you do that without the kinds of people skills that come with one-on-one relationships or group relationships? How can you do that in front of a television screen or an iPad or even a telephone?
Thank you. Very thought-provoking. Let's come across the table then to Reverend Plumbley.
I was just sitting here thinking about the slide rule.
Yes.
As I was entering high school, slide rules were going out.
Yeah.
Thank goodness.
Thank the Lord.
Praise.
I still have mine.
And the thing scared me to death. I think as I sit here, I want to say to the camera that all of you younger people who are out there watching the program probably don't have the foggiest notion of what a slide rule even is. And yet it was the central technological tool for a lot of math and science education, particularly. When I was just before I got into higher education. And I bring that up simply because I think sometimes we spend a lot of time in education simply learning, having the kids, the students learn how to manipulate the technology. And in that case of the folks just ahead of me in school, learning how to work a slide rule, what the heck it was and what it was supposed to do for you and so forth. I think generally, the advances in technology that we have seen have done several very positive things. They've made the students more active participants in the conversation, to even be able to go back and do quick research and question the professor on the spot. They've made the teachers something more than a dispenser of information. We always had the image of the teacher was one who was basically cutting off the head, pouring in knowledge, and then sewing everything back up. The teacher is in a much more dialogical relationship now, and I think that's a very positive thing.
All right, thank you. Across the table, Dr. Lane, please.
I remember being thankful for a computer with trigonometric functions on it. And nowadays, I don't know that my son is even aware that there is one except on his computer desktop, that it was ever handheld. I'm not quite sure. What's missing, or the way the moderator's statement approached it was that is this emphasis on IT masking something that's really still missing? Something that that Carl mentioned a moment ago about the burdens that shouldn't be removed. I like that. There is a burden there. You mentioned it a moment ago, Mel, and that is being able to think. There is a metamorphosis that occurs in education. that somehow is getting lost in all of this. The chrysalis of working your way out of the binds of ignorance that helps you to stand on your own and fly on your own rather than be dependent on the tool that gives you access to someone else's thinking. And what a challenge it is for us, even. I mean, do you text? Doesn't it frustrate you that the machine will finish the word for you? But isn't it wonderful at the same time?
It makes for some funny stories sometimes, too.
It really does.
When the word's wrong.
I have learned that if you type open parenthesis B close parenthesis, it will put in an emoticon of a beer mug. That's a problem for me. That's a problem for me.
Yeah.
But the issue is learning how to critically think. And you can't learn that from a machine. It's got to be an encounter with someone who's challenging your thinking. Oh, Lord, help us to do that more.
All right, thank you. Across the table, Bishop Lakey.
Thank you very much. The discussion, I think, is up at a higher educational level. Dr. Trovall and Dr. These graduate students kind of stuff. The problem that the moderator pointed out is at that basic level. The fourth graders, the sixth graders. To me, you have to have a basic educational grounding in order to appreciate the technology that comes later. I heard once that you spend the first 3 years in school learning how to read, and the rest of the time in school using the ability to read to advance. Our children can do these things on the computer, but they can't read. They can't compute. So my concern is the falsehood that all you have to do is dump, and Mel illustrated this, dump some computers in the classroom and learning automatically takes place. And those things those burdens we have, those burdens of homework, those burdens of learning to research more than simply Google, so that you can evaluate whether or not what Google has is proper and correct. Those are the skills that we are losing by putting everything. And there's a preacher, and I'll close with this, a pastor in Atlanta was dismissed from his church, a Baptist church, Allan. Thank God for the Baptists, in that they fired him because they found he was getting his sermon from the computer. Somebody went on the computer and found the same sermon and said, at least you ought to change it around a little bit.
Plagiarizing.
But technology can make us lazy. I don't mind the computer correcting my spelling. I don't want the computer correcting my thoughts.
Your thinking. Thank you. Let's come back to Bishop Olson, please.
Well, all very good points. The other thing I would add, just in general, is that it just underscores, again, technology being a means and an essential means, but that we need for education to help us. I think two things is that the efficiency that's been provided through technology has while increasing our capacity, it also increases the expectations that we have on ourselves and others, and it expands the time. Instead of doing something well, we end up doing something a lot more that we don't need to. And the second thing is, where do we learn? The technology itself doesn't help us establish social boundaries, including how to relate to authority, a boss. How to, like Aristotle said, if you want to learn virtue, you have to look at a virtuous person as an example, hence the need for a teacher. And that relationship that happens. And I think technology can't replace those things. It can only augment it. And if it tries to replace it, it's a disastrous result.
Thank you very much. Dr. Trovall, did you want to say something further on this?
Yes, I want to actually continue because I'm going to go back to Albert Borgman. I mean, he said one of the problems with technology is that it's more like a bribe. For instance, if you go into any living room, most of the chairs are facing the TV set. I mean, we've already bought the bribe so that we organize our lives around it, rather than, like, what would happen to TV habits if we just turned the TV around and we had to actually pull it out and turn it around every time we wanted to watch it? Because then the burden of the technology would be appropriately there, because then we would have to say, okay, we're consciously doing this. And this is what I want educators to do, is to think about the bribe that technology is offering, and to not use technology, but to not buy the easy bribe, and to think of the difficult ways that technology can be utilized to enhance learning in the classroom.
I have a friend who was recently interviewed for a math position. One of the questions he was asked was, how do you let your students use the calculator in the classroom? And of course, he didn't know what they were looking for necessarily. He didn't know that in that school they use the calculator quite heavily. He answered, well, I don't unless they have to. And he was hired on that basis. He wanted to teach kids how to do math and then use the calculator as the backup or the secondary help and source. So, yes.
It concerns me when I see younger students in particular who no longer know how to write in cursive. Oh, they know how to choose between 48 different fonts on their computer.
On that, we're going to have to say,
yes,
we're out of time on that. We can think more about that over the break. There is an important message we'd like for you to hear. We'll be back in just a few moments.
Thank you, Pastor Lutz. We hope you are enjoying today's program. If you would like to learn more about the American Religious Town Hall, please visit our website at americanreligious.org. That's americanreligious.org. There you can read about the mission and history of the program, learn about the Town Hall estates, and view past programs by clicking the appropriate menu buttons. Each week, Pastor Lutz looks forward to receiving your letters. You may write to him at the address shown on your screen. Send your letters to Pastor Jerry Lutz, American Religious Town Hall Meeting, P.O. Box 180118, Dallas, Texas 75218. That's Pastor Jerry Lutz, American Religious Town Hall Meeting, P.O. Box 180118, Dallas, Texas 75218. Thank you for writing, and thank you for watching. And now, back to you, Pastor Lutz, and today's closing statements.
Well, thank you very much, Mark, and for that information. I, too, will encourage you to go to our website. You can find programs from past days and months and years even, things that I think you'll find interesting, but I'm surely glad that you tuned in today. Now we're going to go to our summary statements, and for that we turn to Bishop Olson. You're first.
Technology is not a panacea for education and educational problems. It's a means to an end, but it cannot supplant for basic educational needs like socialization, like mathematical tools, like philosophy, like education and virtue, but can augment and help these things. It's a means to an end.
All right, thank you very much. And next to you, Reverend Plumbley.
Thank you. And I think that students need to attain a certain competency in the manipulation of those means. But the technology must be used in the performing of goals of authentic learning, not just trying to manipulate the technology, but learning how to think and experience in thinking. I think all of this is covering up the real problem in our educational system, which has a whole lot more to do with underfunding and teaching to the test and overuse of standardized testing and moves toward privatization and all those kinds of things. But technology is certainly a challenge at every level of the educational process.
Thank you. Now, Bishop Lakey.
I trust that when some ancient civilization generations from now uncover our generation, that the model of our idol is not a giant laptop at which people are pictured bowing down and worshiping. Because I suspect that in today's world, we're creating that idol of a laptop, and we are slowly bowing down to worship it at the expense of what it really means to be human, creative, in God's image.
Thought-provoking. Thank you. Cross the table then to Dr. Lane. You're
be
nodding in approval, so
wouldn't be a laptop, it would be an iPad.
Yeah.
That's right. Oh, my.
Your closing statement, please.
Yeah. How challenging it is for us to really get to the root of the problem. And I've heard several of you mention it, and that is, when does learning happen? And I honestly believe it happens in this nurturing relationship between teacher and student. Whatever the tools that may be used, it's in that moment. And I'm sitting by two that obviously care very much about the work they do. That's when it happens. I agree with this statement. Too much emphasis can be put on technology and many other things if it's to the detriment of that learning experience that needs to take place.
Thank you for that. And now, Mel?
Yeah, technology is a great thing in many respects, and it's a terrible thing in other respects. And I think it's important for us to recognize the kinds of pressures that go into making choices about what technology, how much technology, and what to expect from technology. All of that's being made. We don't talk much about learning theory, educational theory, how people learn, and so forth. And the theories that have come out over the last, I'll say, 50 years, I mean, we have changed and we have changed and we have changed and we have changed, and we have not done any better now. I mean, the statistics from 1970 is that we haven't made any headway whatsoever. So, I get tired of making all these changes all the time. Now the government's telling us how we have to teach our classes and what we have to expect and so forth. And that impinges upon the way we teach and what we deliver and so forth. Well, that's all fine and dandy, but sometimes I just wish they'd let us teach.
Well, thank you for that. And Dr. Trovall, your summary statement, or should I say Professor Trovall?
I am going to go back to something that Michael mentioned about Aristotle and the importance of practice in developing the virtuous life. But here I'm thinking of the virtuous life vis-a-vis technology, namely that, and this comes from Albert Borgman, that we take a practice, we have focal things and we develop practices around them to counter technology. Namely, and a focal thing is something that has a commanding presence, engages your body, your mind, and engages you with community and other people. And he said these are the things that we as a community need to really focus and work on. He commends examples: guitar or instruments, meals and cooking, wilderness and hiking, fishing, you get the point, basketball, pen and paper. Okay. And developing those things, we become a different people.
Thank you, Dr. Trovall, and thank you to each and every one of you for being here today. Appreciate your insight, and we look forward to meeting with you again. Now, the Charter of the American Religious Town Hall provides that Roman Catholics, Protestants, Jews, educators, and others may appear on this program and can declare their beliefs without hesitancy, and the rest of the members of the panel will uphold and guarantee that American right to all who will appear, irrespective of race or creed, so that the rest of the world can see that here in America we believe in civil and religious freedom, not only in theory, but in reality. And now, friends, until next week at the same time and over this very same channel, the American Religious Town Hall meeting stands adjourned. May the God of all of us bless all of you.